Hello and welcome to SweetSpotDFS. This is a preview for the 2021 Waste Management Phoenix Open. It's also the course fit video. So I'm going to combine those two, and primarily because I just didn't have time to split them up. Also, the course fit isn't as packed as it typically would be. Like, I don't have as much to talk about with course fit as I normally would, primarily because I don't have the grass stats for this tournament. And I'll talk about that when we get into the waste management, because it is not Bermuda, it's not bent grass, it's not POA, it's ryegrass. And I don't have ryegrass split up currently. So we'll get into that. So we'll talk. Okay, so what we would typically talk in a preview is just go over past results, historical salaries, look at optimal lineups as well as bucket systems. In the course fit, we would look at tournament fact sheets, weather forecasts, a course breakdown, demographics, grass stats, course history. I'm going to condense a lot of that. I don't know if I'm going to actually split those up in the timestamps, but you can see what they are in the description below. I also will have chapter mode enabled, so the segments or the progress bar will be broken up into segments. Those coincide with the timestamps. So let's go ahead and get into it. And right away, what I'm going to say, we're going to go into the course fit part of it. I want to talk about the tournament fact sheets. This is kind of like an intro to the tournament, where we're playing, that kind of thing. So Waste Management Phoenix Open is being played at the TPC Scottsdale Stadium course in Scottsdale, Arizona. You can see the dates up there. It's a par 71, 7,200 yards. Stimp is running at a 12, which is on the faster end of average. It's not the fastest the tour sees, but it's pretty good, especially during this time of the year. We can see average green size, fairways, how many bunkers are into play, water hazards. I mean, if I had the stats, so if you guys have the stats, look for golfers who avoid water penalties. I just don't know if anyone really has it, but it is a good stat to look at, because really the aggressive golfers might, well, obviously this is going to happen at any golf course, but really any golf course that has a lot of penalties on it, your aggressive golfers are either going to be rewarded more, or they're going to be punished more. I think there's always a sentiment about how Ryan Palmer always finds water. Well, you know, you look at your aggressive golfers who are always shooting at the flags. Perhaps those are golfers you can choose to fade, or just deal with, you know, the volatility that'll come with that aggressiveness. But either way, that's where you would look at water. Turf grass is something to talk about. So a lot of people get super confused about this, because they say, ooh, Tiff Eagle Bermuda grass. That means that is the number one grass. It's overseeded with these grasses here. Here's what I'm going to tell you. The first grass you see is the base layer. Now, if you don't know much about golf, you know, like golf superintendent or golf course management or anything like that, I've taken classes, so I feel very confident talking about this. Your base layer obviously is the grass that you could say is native to this golf course, or that has become native. Sometimes grasses get implanted from all over, you know, different regions, but for the most part, this Bermuda grass would thrive here during the summertime. Unfortunately, it is dormant. And what you need is the average temperature throughout the entire day, 24 hours, not just at one point in the day, but 24 hours needs to average 70 degrees. If we were to look at the weather forecast, you can see it is in the 70s, but that's the high. That's the high of the temp. It drops down to 44 during the nighttime. So together, all the way through the day, that average isn't over 70. That means the grass isn't growing. It's become dormant. When it's dormant, you're not going to get the characteristics. It's kind of weird. Like, it doesn't die, but it is extremely brittle. So it can get damaged easier than it would if it wasn't dormant. However, we don't really have to worry about that. I mean, in the rough, you're going to see this yellowish orangish grass, not orange brown, yellowish brown grass. That is Bermuda, but it is a shell of itself. Like, it is not at all what you would anticipate Bermuda to be. It's very thin. You could have seen it in the American Express tournament in La Quinta, Yeah, it's mostly La Quinta, but basically the Palm Springs area. That grass is so easy to hit out of. It really typically gives you like really, it's a fluffy lie. It can provide a lot of flyer opportunities, but you're never going to like have to hack anything out of that grass. So that's one thing to keep note of. Now it's overseeded with whatever the other grass is. On the green, this makes it tricky. You know, between these two grasses, which one of it is it seeded more? And it doesn't say. You know, with the rest of these, ryegrass and fine fescue. Now, ryegrass is the most general grass that any golf course uses for any kind of maintenance. It can grow in any type of temperature. It's really easy to regulate, really easy to maintain. It's usually also what you find at a lot of muni golf courses all over in the sand and seed bottles next to the par 3s, all ryegrass, because ryegrass works well with other grasses. It's not an invasive grass, unlike POA. POA is definitely an invasive grass, meaning it will take over a golf course. Ryegrass is just kind of like, it's basically Switzerland. You know, it's neutral. It doesn't favor one side or another, but it's really good to work with. It's the best analogy I could probably use, but I believe, and I remember hearing this on the Tourcast or the telecast last year, you know, these ryegrass greens, really easy to putt on. Basically, every putt is straightforward. There's no guessing of, you know, what grain is going to do or anything like that. That's why, you know, like certain golfers show up here, like Hideki Matsuyama. Greens are typically flat. Grass is really easy to read. I think that's why Hideki and some of the bad putters, even like Benny Ann, they do well here because these greens are probably the easiest greens the tour gets throughout the entire season. So, I mean, if there is another course out there, you guys can let me know, but I'm pretty sure from what I remember in my notes that I heard over the telecast last year, that's exactly what they said. So I could have wrote that down wrong, but I doubt it. But either way, I wanted to educate you guys on that. I have taken, you know, 3 agronomy classes in college. I went to school for golf management. I'm pretty familiar with the different types of grasses, and I'm 95% sure that's exactly what's going on here. Anyways, you can see the additional notes. You can also get this sheet that you see here at this rate, gcsaa.org. They did not have one for Farmers Insurance Open before the tournament started, but when I went to the website, it was there magically. So we didn't talk about it in the Farmers, but I'm glad it was here. So there you go. Those are the course statistics. That's how the tournament setup is, that kind of stuff, the grass, everything. Again, I don't have ryegrass stats for golfers, primarily because I don't have a database created just yet, but all in time, obviously, we'll get there. We kind of already saw what the weather forecast was. Pretty perfect. You know, you will want to check Wednesday night to see what the wind is going to do, but as you can see right here, we really don't see anything more than 6 miles an hour. Like, we're looking at Thursday to Sunday, and by 6 I mean 8, which it means it's pretty benign. Like, these are going to be perfect scoring days. So I would typically go to like a course breakdown from here. I can give you this, you know, screenshot it, whatever you want. This is kind of my quick analysis of the course. It's pretty wide open. Like, there are no trees that are going to basically force anybody to play a certain type of shot shape. There is trouble, but there aren't like skinny parts of the green that require certain shot shapes. Everything that you see here on the screen is just a preferred shot shape. It's not a required shot shape, more so a preferred because of how the green is set up, where the penalties are, that kind of stuff. This will make for a better chance of scoring. So as I tallied it up, off the tee, we have 2 fades, 1 draw, and the rest of them doesn't matter. Into the green, we have 5 draws and no fades. There were some greens that I kind of saw a little knoll or whatever you want to call back right of the green, where if they did put a pin there, you'd want to hit a fade in, but I don't know exactly how close they can get to those spots. But I believe, I mean, when we look at the results every single year, we see a lot of golfers who draw the golf ball, but we also see a lot of golfers that fade the golf ball. So to me, you know, you always see Webb up here. I think Ches draws the ball. Ricky at this time drew the ball, but like you got a bunch of fade golfers here. Bubba likes to hit that big cut, which would be like a draw for a right-handed golfer. Again, that's where my draws and fades come from the right-handed perspective. So if you're lefty, you just switch them. And obviously Bubba likes to hit that huge cut. But it's a good mix of both fades and draws. And this is just from, you know, the knowledge that I have with these golfers. Obviously, we know Bubba or Webb hits a huge draw. Tony can hit a draw, but typically it's a fade, as does JT. But yeah, it's a good mix between the two. I don't really think shot shape is going to matter, so we're not really going to talk about demographics. We could, when we get in the DK page, maybe we will, just to see who's all from Arizona that might be playing well, that could play well here. And we'll talk about course history a little bit later, but we can talk about past results. Since we're already here, I want to talk about target score. Now, I am 3 for 3 on the season of target score where we can anticipate. And primarily the reason that I think target score is an important thing to think about is there are, you know, golfers have basically different, what do you want to call it? Different builds, I suppose. You know, some golfers are better built to score really low. Some are better built to grind out pars. This, I think, is kind of an in-between. You know, it seems like the scoring is kind of in the middle. So you could see certain golfers of each ilk doing as good or as well as the other. However, I think this week is going to be a little bit lower scoring than usual. I'm going to target a score between 18 and 20 under. Actually, 18 to 21 under. I know that's given me a little bit of a gap, but I don't think, I mean, we see 17, 17, 18, 17, 14, 15, 16, and then 28. So on average, or, you know, most of the tournaments are under 18 under. Or not under, they're over 18 under. So, you know, 17 down to 14, basically. That's the majority of these tournaments. But I think this year we're going to see 18 to 21. I think there's a lot of good scoring golfers that are in the field this week. And when the temps are going to be pretty benign, not the temps, but just the weather in general is going to be pretty benign. I could see 20 under getting reached kind of easily. So that's what I'm anticipating. If you have, you know, what I would do with those stats, I don't have the capability yet, but what I would do with those stats is look at every tournament that was 20 under or lower and target golfers that do well, you know, and you can obviously use other stats in conjunction or in combination with those, or with that, you know, target score 20 under or lower, and find the best golfers that fit that mold. But yeah, I would definitely, you know, if I had the stats, that's how I would look at it. So definitely consider that. Let's go ahead and get into historical salaries. Now, I love looking at historical salaries. This is also 3 for 3 on the year so far, since I've kind of brought it up since the Tournament of Champions. So maybe it's 3 for 4. Can't remember off the top of my head. I know we got the last 3 right. I don't remember what happened to Tournament Champions. But basically what we'll look at right away is, like, to come over to this like kind of analysis box, if you will, where it shows a summary of the winner, top 10, you know, the minimum, like the lowest salary golfer to win this tournament, the highest price, maximum minimum, obviously. And then we can see in the top 10, what was the max salary, what was the minimum. So you can see, you know, because if you have a bias, like I'm never going to play someone who's lower than 6,500, well, it might be worth the shot to do that. And then going, you know, layers deeper here, I actually have it set out by price range. So we can call these price buckets. SweetSpotDFS usually just goes everything by buckets. We can go by price buckets. And 10K and above is one, 9 to 10 is another, 8 to 9 is another, 7 to 8, and then anything really in 6K. But there have been times where DraftKings has put in a 5K range. But anyways, anything below 7K. You can see, of all the winners, what bucket they fit in there, what price bucket. We can also see of all the top 10 golfers, how many of them, put themselves in these buckets. Not put themselves, but how many find themselves in these buckets. So obviously we can see 6, 10K and above finish inside the top 10. You can see obviously the 7 to 8K price range. We see the most there. And then obviously, I should say obviously, but these are the percentages of what those price buckets look compared to each other. So 15.38% finishes inside the top 10 for prices 10 and above, and so on and so forth. Obviously 30, that 7 to 8K bucket is the greatest. But we can also come down to this little analysis box and see of all the price buckets, what are the total amount of golfers, and this is going back to 2018. I should say that. So 2020 to 2018. Here are all the price buckets. And these are totals. So if I were to go back to 2018, you can see the totals for each of those price buckets. I know I'm kind of repeating myself, but we have 14 total for the 10K and above. And then 6 of those finished inside the top 10, meaning 42.86% of 10K and above golfers finished inside the top 10. Now, what can you do with this type of information? Well, you can make a determination. Do I want to play a 10K golfer this week? Based off of who they are or how many there are, should I play a 10K golfer? And in all honesty, the more 10K golfers there are, it's just going to be easier to play. So obviously, if we have 6 10K golfers, do we think at least two of them will finish inside the top 10? I mean, if you take 6 and you times by 42%, you're going to get somewhere between 2 and 3. So yeah, the answer would be yes, which means it would be kind of foolish not to play a 10K golfer. And likewise, you can see all the other percentages. 9 to 10, we don't really see a lot of, but 26% of them. Actually, here, let me just pull up the spreadsheet. That way we can look at it together. So we have 5 total golfers that are in the 10K and above price range. What we would do is, obviously 40% of that's going to be 2. Obviously, the 10K range is pretty loaded with really good golfers. I think, collectively, they average out to be 4.8 in the world. All top 10 golfers in the world. Well, then we look at the 9K range. We have 7 golfers, and that was at a clip of 25% basically, or 24%, which is really meaning somewhere between 1 and 2 of these golfers are, do we think 1 or 2 of these golfers are going to finish inside the top 10? Probably. So then it's also kind of just mixed and matching who you think the best plays are. If we anticipate 2 of these guys being inside the top 10, now we really have a dilemma, because fitting both of those together doesn't leave a lot of salary options when it comes to creating lineups. So, if Justin Thomas wins the tournament, but Rory's in second place, is there much of a price break between those two where you could make a Rory lineup, or would you want to, or play, JT and Rory? Well, if JT and Rory are there 1 and 2, and say Daniel Berger is 3rd, it might actually be more beneficial to go JT Berger and then find your fill-in golfers that still finish inside the top 10, basically, if you can do that, obviously. So this is what I've learned throughout the last year of really digging into this. We could estimate perfectly that only 2 of these golfers are going to finish inside the top 10. We could also say with this lineup here, it's probably going to be 3. If that's the case, that's great, but we need to pick the right one. So that's where it's like, ownership. Do we go with one or the other? personally, for me, if it was only like you needed to pick one, I would probably go heavy on certain guys. But the fact that there are 3, I don't know if you're really going to miss out on making a lot of money if you don't pick the winner out of this group, but still get like the 3rd place guy. So I have no issue watering down your ownership with these guys, because I would want to pair them up with these. It's kind of going a little like super in depth, but that's the whole purpose that I want to provide. Just so you guys have kind of a good idea why looking at salaries matter and what you should do with that salary information. Now you guys can figure out different ways to do with it, but I think those are probably the most optimal. If we were to look at, the highest range is the 7 to 8K price range at 30.77% inside the top 10, but there are 141 of them, throughout the last 3 years that's looking at. That's only 8.5%. So you need to find, of everyone in that 7K range, that 8% basically. So basically, if I were to scroll down and look, we have 32 golfers. So 8% of 32, was that like 4? You'd find 4 golfers that might finish inside the top 10. Let's see, 10% would be 3. So I'm a little off. It's like 2 or 3, basically, you want to choose. So out of 32, it's going to be a little difficult. It's kind of worth mentioning. I don't know. Optimal lineups, if we want to look at it. I have the optimal lineup here for 2019. Do I have it for 2018? Yes, but I don't have them marked. Okay. Well, we can look at 2018. Everybody inside the top 10. No one is 10K. Sure, we have one at 11, or in 11th place. We have 2, actually. We have John Rahm and Ricky Fowler. If we're going to be honest with ourselves, we're more likely, it would be really foolish not to pick one of those guys in the 10K. Although it doesn't show up inside the top 10, I think, still going with anyone in that 10K and above range, none of this would have hurt you in 2018, especially when everyone else was affordable up here. Still need to find the winner, and most likely 2nd and 3rd place. Pairing them up with whatever, you're more likely going to win a GPP. So definitely don't worry about that. Going into 2019, okay, the optimal lineup was 9-4, 8, 8-9, 8-7, 7-3, and 6-4. So that was extremely balanced, minus the 6-4 golfer. If we were trying to make kind of a lineup that would make sense, we could still find everyone inside the top 10, but you would have to select the golfers I chose. It wouldn't have been the optimal lineup, but it would have been really close. Again, what I'm trying to get at is you still can get your 10K golfer and above with the rest of them, but you're more likely still going to have to find that 6K golfer. So 2018, you needed to, in the optimal lineup here, I think this was really, 50,000 was used, using a 10K golfer, 2 9s, a 6K golfer, and 2 7s. So in my opinion, so like last week, I said you needed a 10K and a 6K, which isn't really difficult to come up with that type of analysis. I'm going to tell you, you need a 10K in this one for sure, and a 6K as well. I'm going to say you need a 10K, a 9K, and a 6K. So I would definitely build my cores around that. I really don't find how that's going to be an issue whatsoever. I keep forgetting to mention this in my other previews, but you can see the highest count salaries that show up. Don't really pay any attention to the actual salary, but it's more or less looking at how close they are lumped to each other. Like I'm looking at 7,100, 74, and 69. They're all within $500 of each other. Basically, it's like low 7s. We want probably 1 or 2 low 7, high 6K golfers. So I would definitely consider, if we're going 10, 9, 6, maybe we find someone that's 7,500 and less, for our 4th golfer, and then just fill it in from there. Let's move on to the bucket system. So with the bucket system, similar to the salaries, let's see if I can condense it a little bit so it's easier for you guys to see. This is essentially looking at the exact same stuff we were doing with the salaries. It's basically finding the frequency it happens inside the top 10, and then basically the frequency it happens within its own totals. So this range percentage over here is looking at the totals in basically in these these tables down here, and comparing it to who shows up inside the top 10. I guess I should actually start out with the bucket system is looking at finishing ranges of 2 different types of finishes, last year and last week. And I always go by 20 spots for your finishing ranges, 1 to 20, 20 to 40, so on and so forth. And then I total each one of those ranges to find the highest ranked bucket, basically. So the lower the number you see over here, the better. And that's what we would want to be targeting or focusing. So your last year bucket 1 golfers are golfers who top 20 the year before. You can look here across, every single year going back to 2014, minus the 2016 where there was only 1 golfer that finished inside the top 10 who had a 1 to 20 finish the year before. Your minimum is 3. If we average this out, it's 4.4. So I believe finding a last week, what ended up happening was I had said, I think we wanted to find at least 3 last year bucket 1 golfers. They ended up being, every one of them ended up being 10K and above that finished inside the top 10. We can't make lineups that way. So basically what I'm trying to say is I had to learn a little bit, and I know I've learned this in the past. We can't just, even though the minimum's that way, I think if we're looking at salaries for golfers, I can already tell you, like, there are 4 golfers who are last year ones inside the top 10, or not top 10, but that are 10K and above. Very good chance that 2 or 3 of these guys end up finishing inside that top 10, meaning I can't tell you need to play at least 3. Because if I were to do that and it was those golfers that show up, sure, I'm right, but it's not going to help you out. I have to figure out a way how to do that. But you can see what the top 10 percentages of each of those buckets, each one of those ranges. So obviously, again, last year bucket 1, golfers who top 20. Last year bucket 2 are golfers who did not play. Pretty darn close to the exact same percentage. Those two together are 65%. So golfers who did not play the year before show up pretty decently. Here's the thing I've learned. COVID messes with the numbers. I think I need to move this down to 30 because I believe, this is one of the things I forgot to do during the Farmers Insurance Open. I was trying to figure out what I was missing. Let's hold on here. Is that true? Look at everyone who did not play. No, there are way more did not play. Where am I going? Okay, so I'll have to figure this one out. I don't understand why it's doing that. It's obviously more than 3 that did not play the week before. I'm not looking in the right range. That was the other thing. There we go. Perfect. Man, I almost gave myself a heart attack there. Anyways, hope this is looking at the right stuff. It'd be really pointless to bring this stuff up if it wasn't. So what I'm trying to get at, or what I was going with all of this, What COVID's done is it's changed the makeup of what these fields are. Usually you would find a lot of golfers who had not played the year before because you would have a lot of Korn Ferry graduates coming in. Now, I believe this is kind of an invitational. There's only 132 golfers in the field. I'm not positive on that, but I would assume that this number would be usually lower. We're going to find more golfers that did play the week before. In fact, you can see more golfers missed the cut last year in this field than any of the other fields. Same goes with did not plays. There's actually less. So we're taking out of this bucket the did not plays and adding them to the missed cut bucket, basically. When we look and we kind of compare those two to each other, there's obviously, twice as many did not plays that finish inside the top 10 than there are missed cuts, but with the difference in numbers, we probably could add one more to this a year and take one away from this a year. So averaged, this is 3.4, and when this is averaged, it's 1.5. I would bump this up to 2, the minimum is 2, and bump this down to 3. Or maybe 2. But again, that's just looking at top 10. I know I'm probably losing some of you guys, but hopefully you guys have been following along. For the last week bucket, golfers who did not play the week before, definitely a huge bonus. Those that top 20 would be the next bonus, and that range, so 14.52% of golfers that finish in the top 20 find themselves inside the top 10. That's pretty good because obviously we have up to 20 golfers usually every single year that play in this tournament. I mean, can't have more than 20 unless there's a huge tie. More than likely we see, what do we usually see? Basically somewhere between 12 to 20 or 12 to 19. In this year's tournament, there are 12. We can obviously compare, 2020 and 2019 and 2014 are all years where there weren't that many in that overall bucket. We can see what the result ended up being, 2, 1, and 2. So I'm pretty comfortable playing at least 2 last week 2s that played in the Farmers Insurance Open, finished top 20, that are also playing in the Phoenix Open. So definitely consider that. I think that would be beneficial. And then you can see what the other ranges look like. The did not plays, very, very big number here, 9.07 for the total range. That's not terrible either. So basically that's where I'm going to try to find my core plays using, the percentages that I see with the bucket system, combine it with what I'm looking for with salaries as well, and then go from there, essentially. I also look at the bucket combinations. I store all of them every single year. I'm not going to bore you with looking at all of them. We can also see, with each of these buckets, this is something I've been forgetting to do. But how this reads is 6 out of 7 years, there has been a 1-1 inside the top 10. And if I can continue looking, obviously, basically every year except for 2016, we see a 1-1 inside the top 10, and not even just the top 10, inside the top 5. So it would be very beneficial to find a 1-1 and kind of build your core around it. And if we were looking at the counts of top 10s, or top 5s, I should say, or top 10s, your last year 1, last week 1 comes out up at top. And this is looking just at top 10 percentages. This isn't looking at the total. I haven't yet been able to figure that one out to do. That would be over in this column over here. But of top 10 golfers, 15% of them are last year 1, last week 1s. Again, those are golfers who top 20 at the Waste Management Open the year before, and the week before, whatever tournament that was, usually it's the Farmers Insurance, they did not play. So right away, I guess what we could do, look at all of our last year 1, last week 1s. We only have 8 of them. And out of them, you have 2 guys inside or in that 10K and above price range. And then Daniel Berger, who is going to be a very popular 9K play. And then a couple other guys down here that are pretty enticing plays. I shouldn't say enticing, but if you're going to fade any of these golfers, perhaps pick one of these guys up just to add to your lineup. Now, again, that's 6 out of 7 years, which would be, I think, what, 85%? I think it ends up being something like that. You could use that to this field and say, okay, if I'm making 100 lineups, any one of these guys are going to show up, not anyone, but total, collectively, they'll be an 85 out of 100 of my lineups. You could go that route, or you could say there's not going to be a 1-1 that's going to finish inside the top 10. And at that fact, then it's just like, I'm not going to play a single one of them. And that's fine. You can do that. Maybe there won't be one. I think it's highly unlikely. I think it's, Webb or JT, one guy, he won this tournament last year. The other guy finished third. I would think it would be fool's gold. Like, I think it would be really silly. And I think that's how I'm going to actually build my core for my lineups, especially when I use the optimizer tomorrow in the strategy video. We're going to do it this way. So now that you see what the 1-1s are, we can look at our second bucket to see which one that is, or bucket combination, and it would be 2 1s. We see 11, so 13.1%. Doesn't show up that much in comparison to the 1-1s inside the top 5, but still not terrible. So who are our 2 1s? Not a lot of high price guys. We have Brennan Todd, Michael Thompson, Stuart Sink, Augenstein. You see a bunch of these. I mean, here are some really good rookies on tour: Davis Riley and John Augenstein. I don't know if any of you guys followed the secret golf guys of Steve Elkington and Diane Knox, but Knox actually had McGirt, I think, during the Sony Open as one of her favorite plays, or during the American Express. I can't remember which one it was. And he was doing well. Then he wasn't. Like, I can't remember exactly where it was, but he was making the cut, and I think he actually moved up the leaderboard where he was like in the top 10 for a little while. Second round didn't treat him that well, though. So William McGirt at 6K, I'll be playing. I don't believe in playing 6K golfers more than 10%, but I think McGirt might get at least 5% of my ownership. So definitely thinking about doing that. I think that's going to be it, though. I'm not going to talk much more about the bucket combinations, but you can kind of see what they are. If you combine them with what the ranges were that I showed you, you can make up your own determination as to whether or not you think it's important to play them or not. So we looked at historical salaries, optimal lineup, bucket system. I didn't have recent form buckets ready for you guys, so that's unfortunate. But I think the last piece we're going to look at would be course history. Now, what I would typically do is we could use the 2021 DK page, but it can get a little messy looking. We could go and sort by course history here. What I want to show you is, like, there's no grass stats. So I would typically be looking at grass stats. That's why it looks so small here. We can usually look at this, but it doesn't really give us kind of the overall look. Not overall look, but it doesn't really look into top 10s or best finish, worst finish, anything like that. So we're going to go to the course history tab here and look at some of the best golfers that are in the field. What I want to do right away is remove all the golfers who've only had one event of experience. So we obviously see Nate Lashley, Louis Oosthuizen, Harry Higgs, Xinjun Zhang. Those guys we can go ahead and remove. And I guess we can get rid of the rookies too. How about that? Let's look at the rookies really quickly. A lot of younger guys: Davis Riley, Eric Van Rooyen, Will Zalatoris, even Rory. Rory's a rookie at this tournament. He's not a rookie on the PGA Tour, but has not yet played this tournament. So it's his first time. Obviously going to like him, but just wanted to throw those guys out there just to show you. But now that we've gotten rid of golfers who've played one tournament or less, here are your best course history guys. And one of the reasons why John Rahm's on the thumbnail is because of his course history. It is fantastic. 10.2 is his average finishing position. Hasn't finished worse than 16th. I don't see that changing at this tournament. All the 10K golfers are in play for me. I don't think there's a bad play whatsoever. Matt Kuchar's next. You could say Matt Kuchar hasn't been playing that great of golf recently, and I don't remember him really playing that well in 2020, but a 16th place finish, not terrible, and I think he's only 7K, so in the 7K range, not, pretty good. Xander Schauffele, one top 10 finish, really good course history, but at his price tag, is this good enough? I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I was telling you before, Benny Ann has putted well on this golf course. 14.5 is his average finishing position with 2 top 10s. That's pretty darn good. Hideki, I mean, there's Max Homa here with 2 events. I'm not sure if that's really worth talking about, but he's been playing pretty decent lately, so he's also in play. Hideki Matsuyama probably has the best course history. If we take away his withdraw, 6.5 ends up being his average finishing position. And there obviously was a time where he had not finished worse than 4th, but his last 2 events, not the greatest. So, I mean, I say that not the greatest relative to what he had been doing before. But either way, really good course history for Matsuyama. Sungjae's next, as is Bubba. Bubba, a lot of really good finishes. I think he's tied with the most top 10s, but I just don't know how I feel about him at this tournament this year. I really don't. He just really hasn't been playing the greatest of golf since the restart of COVID. And I don't know if it's the lack of fans that causes his poor play, but I don't know. You guys can make with it as you will. And then obviously we have the last year's winner, Webb, here. I'm not going to go ahead and talk about all of these guys, but you can see what they all are on the screen. Looking at the most top 10s, again, it's Matsuyama, but it's also Bubba. Bubba is tied with the most top 10s. John Rahm with his not limited, but compared to the other 2 guys, he has 3. I strongly feel we're going to make that 4. He's going to have his 4th top 10 here. Don't really think Kuchar's that much in play. Webb certainly can be, as can Daniel Berger. Daniel Berger has 3 top 10s. A missed cut in a 58th place makes his course history average a little worse, but I'm looking for guys who will top 10. And obviously Daniel Berger is going to be a favorite of a lot of people. So, I mean, I don't think it's a bad play. I think it should be worthwhile to play. But I think that's what I'm going to leave course history alone with. I don't know if I have really anything else to go over. Let's see here. Could give you my best course fit plays, but that to me entails like we need to know the grass stats. And I'm not going to go just strictly by course history. That would be kind of cheating. But yeah, I mean, we're not on Bermuda grass, so definitely don't look at Bermuda grass. Course history, I think, will be pretty fantastic. Like, that would be a good one to look at. I also think pairing them up with the bucket system would be a smart thing to do. I know you guys don't really have access to it, but I know tomorrow I'll be going through a little bit, we'll be looking at the strategy of building lineups, and I'll definitely talk a little bit more about the bucket systems, especially including the strokes gain buckets, which have been a huge hit lately. And I think altogether we'll find our best place tomorrow. But I think that's what I want to leave it at. This was more of a preview, so I wanted to basically go over all the things that, I feel a preview should have in it to get you guys thinking about who to play. Also, definitely thinking about the proper, course statistics, I want to call it, with knowing the grass stats, knowing if a shot shape is required or not. I know I was going to bring up, all the golfers that play in Arizona. Didn't really get to it. I guess what I can do is just do a quick run through right now. So everyone who's living in Arizona, you have it right here. There are 14 golfers, so pretty decent. I would pause the video if you want to read them. Again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. I just want to breeze through it. The golfers that played in Arizona you know, college-wise are right here. We see a couple that overlap, which probably is a good sign. I mean, that's probably why John Rahm plays so well at this tournament. But yeah, I think now that we have that out of the way, it's a good time to wrap up. So thank you guys for watching. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the strategy video tomorrow. Okay, bye.